Hi, I'm Tracy.
Hi, and I'm Faye, and welcome to More Better with Tracey and Faye.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Faye.
Hello.
Welcome back to More Better with Tracy and Faye, the podcast where we help you become a better communicator, one episode at a time.
All right. Well, today we're diving into a topic that many of us have faced at some point. So picture this. I don't know if anyone's gone through this before, but you've written, I don't know, an email for your leader, a slide, a one pager, a FAQ, something. And you've sent it over, and your leader could be your manager, a VP, somebody, or a stakeholder says, I want you to simplify it. It's great. It's got all the information in there, but it's too complex or it's too wordy. Stings, doesn't it? Yes. Been there,
Ooh,
done that.
yeah,
Oh,
it
ouch.
definitely stings. But don't worry, we got your back. Because when it comes to simplicity and simplicity in writing, we really believe in what this writer and writing coach, Anne Handley, puts forth. Because she says, good writing is simple, not simplistic. And she goes on to say business, like life, can be complicated. Products can be involved or concepts could seem impenetrable, but good content deconstructs the complex and makes it easily understood. So it sheds the corporate, I love it. She calls it Frankenspeak. Sheds the corporate Frankenspeak and conveys things in human, accessible terms.
She also says no one will ever complain that you've made things too simple to understand. It's a perfect reminder for all of us that simplifying doesn't mean dumbing it down. Oh, I don't like that. I hate that phrase, right? But it's really about making your writing clear, relatable, and most importantly, human.
Yeah, yeah. Because simplifying isn't about stripping away meaning. It's actually getting to the heart of it. It's about making your ideas accessible to the benefit of everybody. And our friend Anne even has this tip from journalism, which says, assume the reader knows nothing, but don't assume they're stupid.
Love that. I also think of, like, the movie Philadelphia when Tom Hanks, he's a lawyer, or is it no, Denzel Washington, and he says, "Explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old." Oh, I always remember that, and I think that's one of those great reminders around simplicity. Such a key
Yeah.
distinction. It also reminds me of the first rule of the Economist magazine style guide.
Ooh, The
Not that those,
Economist.
yeah, I know, nerd alert, read the style guide of the Economist. And it says, like, the first requirement of the Economist is that it should be readily understandable. Clarity of writing usually follows clarity of thought. So think of what you want to say, then say it as simply as possible. And that's the mindset we want to adopt today.
Yeah, absolutely. When Faye and I are teaching, we're doing live teaching workshops, we often talk about critical thinking. So in that Economist quote, which talks about clarity of thought, that requires that you spend some time thinking, right? So, how do you achieve that simplicity without sacrificing meaning or depth? Today, we're going to give you 5 practical tips that will really help you simplify your writing and get straight to the point. They are: know your audience, cut the jargon, use short sentences, use active voice, edit, then edit again. Faye, start us off.
Okay, let's get into it. All right, so tip number one, know your audience. I know we've said that so many times, and I'm sure, like, those of you who write hear that from people, right? But it's so true. Before you start writing, take time to consider who's going to be reading what you've written. Are they subject matter experts? Are they new to this topic? How will they be reading this information? Is it an email, an online news article, a video where visuals can help understanding? Adjust your language based on your audience's level of familiarity. The question that Tracy and I encourage people to ask is, what does my audience need from me in terms of information, context, and delivery so I can meet my objective? Because for every communication you create, you need to have an objective. Knowing what that is, combined with knowing your audience, will help you guide your writing. And here's the key. If you don't know your audience well enough to answer that question, then find someone who does.
Yeah, absolutely. That will come up. We hear that question from people. Well, I'm doing this thing, I'm writing this email, I'm creating this presentation, but I don't really know what this group or this person's preferences are. And you can make educated guesses based on role and level and etc. But your very best way to achieve that, knowing your audience, is ask someone who knows your audience. Steal from the best, right, Faye?
Exactly. That's what I
Because
do.
knowing your audience helps you either over explaining or, on the flip side, assuming too much. So it's about giving people just what they need to move forward. And that leads perfectly into tip number 2, which is cut the jargon, which Anne called Frankenspeak. Because so jargon, corporate speak, your little internal language that you have in your organizations filled with acronyms and all the rest of it, um, might, in your mind, people, I know in the past, people have used it because they think that's what is required to make them seem smart or knowledgeable about the topic. But jargon doesn't do that. In fact, what it does is it tends to build a wall between you and your reader. Simpler, more direct language is always the way to go. So, simple example. We've all heard this in corporate land. We're leveraging assets for synergy.
What is that?
Whoa, it's
What do you
very
mean?
important. I have no idea what that means,
I don't know
right?
what that means.
Maybe just say we're working together to use our resources more effectively. Working together makes sense. Synergy could be anything you choose.
Exactly. And that brings us to tip number 3. Use short sentences. Long sentences with multiple ideas can easily overwhelm your reader. Shorter sentences help you convey your message clearly and keep people engaged. I mean, you see that a lot in social media. I think that's influenced by that. Great writers use direct, short sentences. Love it. Here's an example. So instead of writing, due to the fact that the project is running behind, we will need to allocate additional resources. Try, the project is behind schedule. We need more resources. Simple, clear, to the point.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So this brings us to number 4 of our writing tip to simplify your writing. Use active voice versus passive voice. Use active voice versus active voice is to be used. That is passive. A passive way to say how to use active voice. Sorry, it's confusing, but once you understand the difference between active and passive voice, you'll understand that when you use a passive voice, it's like putting a barrier between you and your audience. If I say active voice is to be used, I kind of have to rejig that in my head. Or if someone says, Tracey, use active voice, the difference is the simplicity is just so much clearer. I can say, well, this report was reviewed by the manager. Or I can say, the manager reviewed the report. The meaning is same, but the simplicity and the clarity are vastly different. When I say the manager reviewed the report, it's cleaner, it's clearer, and anything that is clean and clear is going to actively, automatically be more engaging. So active voice, it helps keep the flow of your writing. It keeps it dynamic. It also cuts down on extra words, making your sentences shorter. Yep.
It's for your brain to process,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I find that my first drafts have the passive voice in them, and then I go back and look for those verbs that are like or those sentences that are organized that way, and then just cut them. All right. Last but not least, tip number 5. Edit, then edit again. Once you've written your piece, go back and look for anything that's repetitive or unclear. Sometimes the best way to simplify is to remove unnecessary words or sentences. I cannot stress this enough. Editing is really where you refine your message, right? Think of like you've thrown that clay down and now you're just going to mold it and shape it, right? A good rule of thumb is to ask yourself, is there a simpler way to say this? And if the answer is yes, go for it. Go back to Anne Handley. Going back to Anne Handley, here's another one of her writing tips. Good writing happens on the rewrite, and we couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Absolutely. We love Anne. She's a
I
very
love Anne.
wise writer of writing tips. Okay, to recap, five things to do to simplify your writing. Number one, and this is going to take the most time, know your audience. Like, make sure you actually know who you're doing this for, why, and what your objective is. Because if you don't know those things, you could write 500 words, you could write 50 words. You're not going to get there. Number two, cut the jargon. Look for those corporate buzzwords. Look for those acronyms. Look for those phrases. If you write anything that uses low-hanging fruit, get rid of it.
What? I like the
I know.
low-hanging
I
fruit.
like low-hanging fruit and capitalizing on paradigm
No,
shifts.
no.
I know. It hurts, right?
It does.
Also, use short sentences. Not diminutive sentences are preferred over elongated ones.
I have no idea what that said. But anyway.
Use short sentences. Also, use active voice. And finally, edit and edit and edit, because, I mean, Faye and I do this for a living, and neither one of us would ever think our first draft is good, or our second draft, or our third. We keep working it. And the more important the document or the communication is, the more you work it and keep doing it.
It's funny that you say that, because sometimes like your end result will be clear, concise, short. But man, the journey to get there can
Yeah,
take a while,
it can take a
right?
while.
Exactly. And remember, simplifying your writing doesn't mean making it basic. Again, it's about clarity, and it's about clarity and accessibility. So when your writing is clear, your ideas shine through, and that's what you want. Plus, your readers and your boss, your VP, your leader will thank you.
And that's it. That's it for today's episode. And if you found it tips helpful, make sure you subscribe to More Better with Tracey and Faye. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we would. And don't forget to catch up on our other episodes where we break down everything from business communication to content creation. Or if you have an idea, let us know what you'd like us to talk about. If you want to dive deeper into any business communication topic, Tracey and I create and deliver custom workshops that help anyone become more skilled and confident when communicating at work. Send us a message. We'd love to chat. Until then, I'm Faye.
And I'm Tracey. Join us next time on More Better with Tracey and Faye.